Hey there, and welcome back to Tiger Drop Films. And today it's a special episode for all my tokusatsu fans out there. I've got my great buddy Nick here with me today from our beloved podcast we make together called G-Force, a Kaiju Podcast. And you want to say hello, Nick?
Hey everyone, I'm super happy to be here, and I'm excited to discuss a particular monster with my good buddy Ike.
Oh, and we're both Mecha Godzilla fans, funny enough, but today
We are.
we're talking about a different guy's big birthday. I wonder if they're going to give him 3 birthday cakes. We're talking about King Ghidorah. Oh, yeah, King Ghidorah.
Yeah, Monster Zero himself.
Hell yeah. So, Nick and I are transmitting from different parts of the galaxy. One of us is from the future, but we're going to make it work today. So,
Yeah.
please sit back, relax, and join me as we discuss the anniversary of King Ghidorah.
Yeah.
I guess,
Works for me.
Nick, what's your connection with King Ghidorah? Like, any fond memories of him growing up?
So yeah, I've always really loved King Ghidorah. He's not my favorite of Godzilla's enemies. That's Mechagodzilla, of course, but I do really love, the big golden dragon. I think my first experience with him was renting a VHS tape of Godzilla vs. Monster Zero as a kid. And I don't have... Sorry, I had hair in my mouth. And I have like one very specific memory of that movie, which was me and my siblings. We decided to just camp out in the living room for the night, I think. And I remember we were all laying on the floor, like with a big blanket, watching that movie on the TV in the living room with the lights off. And that's kind of my fondest memory of a King Ghidorah movie. And I also had Destroy All Monsters on DVD. And for whatever reason, as a kid, I thought that was Ghidorah's first appearance, which doesn't make any sense because he dies in that movie and then he's not dead in Monster Zero. So I don't know what was going on in my head, but I remember I hadn't seen Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster at this point, so I was really impressed with his entrance, which was just stock footage from that movie. It was literally just like on like their screen in like the United Nations building or wherever they were at. But I remember thinking it was like super cool how he just like appeared out of fire. I thought that was like the sickest thing ever. And I had Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah on VHS tape, and I loved that movie and would watch that all the time. So yeah, he was pretty present in my childhood.
As he should be, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you brought up the his big fire entrance that they reused a few times, I think, like you said, in Destroy All Monsters and Versus Gigan, and like, what a mighty entrance, when he just bursts out of that meteor, and just the flames as they just condense into Ghidorah himself. It's such a beautiful sight.
It's so creative too, like, because Ghidorah's like, he's not like a fire elemental or anything, so I don't really know what gave him the idea to have his entrance be like that, but whoever came up with that idea is a genius because it's so cool. And yeah, I think the cool thing about Godzilla vs. Gigan is that, I think we discussed this a little bit on our podcast episode about it, but instead of using the stock footage of that scene, which you'd think they would have because it's Godzilla vs. Gigan, they actually recreated it, which is so cool, if I'm remembering that right. I think they did. But and then it's recreated in the Godzilla PS4 game and Giga Bash and stuff, which he's super fun to play as in that game. He's like a real powerhouse. Yeah, and they kind of also recreated a little bit with Mecha King Ghidorah, and when he appears in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, it's not fire; it's more like
time travel, like the blue things coming together.
Yeah, it's just so iconic, and it's such a big visual part of this character. Did they do that in last year's Tokusatsu short film? too when he appears at the end?
They did, yeah. After he hits
Yeah.
Godzilla, and then he bursts into flames, and then
Yeah.
before that, we got it in the Shin Godzilla versus Evangelion ride.
Oh,
Where
that's
Shin
right.
King Ghidorah appears. It's more like a white and purple fire, from what I remember. And then in Rebirth of Mothra 3, when Ghidorah regenerates in the present day before the final fight against Mothra Leo, he also does the fire thing once again.
So cool. So cool.
Yeah, I love when they find new ways to like put it in the story, you know, even if he was already taken out, like in Rebirth of Mothra 3, or with, you know, Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. Like, I'm glad they've kept that a core part of his character every time he's been reinterpreted.
Me too. Me too. And I think a cool thing about King Ghidorah is that, you know, I know a lot of people really clamor for having like different monsters in the new Godzilla films, and I get it. I agree generally. Ghidorah is used a lot, but I think that, in my opinion, I feel like they always find ways to sort of keep him fresh. I think, sorry, my train of thought derailed for a second. I think, you know, sometimes in, like, by Godzilla vs. Gigan, to me, it sort of felt a little bit like, well, it's probably because they used a bunch of stop motion, or a bunch of stock footage, but, for me, that's like the one time where it feels like, okay, like this is just like we've seen this before, but again, that's probably just the stock footage. But
yeah.
Usually when he comes back around, I feel like they do it in a way where it doesn't feel stale, in my opinion. Like, it's always still fun and exciting to watch.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like, you know, maybe it's like a guy thing, but I think it's like our primal need to see like a big radioactive dinosaur fight a three-headed golden lightning space dragon, you know? Like,
Yeah.
Every time they fight, even if it was multiple times in the same movie, it's like, hell yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. Now, all we need is to have Mecha Godzilla and Mecha King Ghidorah fight. I think that would be super fresh.
That would be super cool. I'd be down for that. I think part of what always makes it feel so fun and engaging to watch is that I think Godzilla and Ghidorah both just have like this really good visual contrast from each other. Like, they don't really look similar at all. You know, I mean, we all know what they look like. Godzilla's a big dinosaur with big spikes on his back, and Ghidorah's a three-headed golden dragon. And they just look so good on screen together. And I think that's a big contributing factor to why Ghidorah is such an iconic villain for Godzilla. It's just a good visual pairing.
You're right, and I even add on to that, you know, like, if you talk about their respective attacks, Godzilla has atomic breath, normally a gigantic laser beam of some kind, then Ghidorah has 3 times that, but they're all lightning strikes, you know, his gravity beam, so even that is like a great contrast to each other. They're different.
I agree. I do have a slight complaint though, which is that I've never liked that they're called gravity beams, because they never have, like, well, I mean, a couple little things here and there, but for the most part they don't have any sort of gravity powers to them. They only do in Final Wars with Kaiser Ghidorah, and then I think that Shin Godzilla ride short film thing, and then the new short film from this year. But for the most part, they're just kind of big lightning bolts. So I've always been annoyed by the name of them.
Oh, me too. Like, I feel like it's just like something that was named in like a secondary source back in like the 70s probably, or 80s, you know? And then I guess they kind of just stuck. But I definitely agree. Like, maybe it's just because he's a space guy. I don't know. Is that why they're called gravity beams? I mean, it's
maybe
just yellow lightning bolts is what they are, pretty much.
Yeah.
But speaking of Kaiser Ghidorah, I am wearing his shirt for the viewers.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to see, you know. I know he's not the most popular guy, but and he probably can't fly if you look at his wings, but he's a decent guy.
He's did you see the commercial for that like pachinko game? I think it's a pachinko game that uses Kaiser Ghidorah. It's like Shin Godzilla fighting Kaiser Ghidorah.
What? Is it like...
Yeah, it's
like...
animated, but like it's super... It's like, I'm not really like a huge fan of Kaiser Ghidorah, but it was still like cool to see him again, and he flies in it, so...
Oh wow, he took some flying lessons?
Yeah.
Oh man. That's dope. I didn't know about that. I guess they do kind of complement each other visually a little bit.
Yeah.
Godzilla and
yeah, they're
Kaiser.
both kind of like real... they're both like a little gross looking, you know?
Yeah, like some odd coloration compared to their other versions, you know? Like, isn't Kaiser a bit more like, has a dark kind of navy blue cutting between the gold, right?
Yeah.
So, man, I always wanted Kaiser Ghidorah as a kid. I saw a recent Bandai on Amazon, but it didn't look that great, like paint-wise. It was like like the Bandai vinyls.
Yeah.
I wanted the one that came out with the Final Wars line, but I don't think they make it anymore.
Yeah, sadly, I think that recent figure doesn't look super good, but maybe they'll do SH Monster Arts one day. That'd be cool.
Oh yeah, I'd even take a Haya.
Oh, dude, I would absolutely take a Haya. It'd be way more affordable anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And it'd probably have some kind of accessory too. Oh man.
Probably.
But I guess you're like thinking about like Kaiser Ghidorah and all the other ones. Do you have like a favorite Ghidorah or King Ghidorah incarnation or top two?
I do. My absolute favorite is my favorite King Ghidorah design and probably powers would be the one from GMK. But my favorite Ghidorah, like as a character, is the Showa one, particularly in his first appearance in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, whenever he's not being controlled by anyone. And he's just kind of a big asshole that just wants to cause problems. So I mean, those are my two favorites, because I think the 2001 design just looks incredible, and I love his like the way he bites Godzilla and like he has that like electric bite, you know. I think that's such a cool power. And then that like shield he uses whenever Godzilla uses the atomic breath on him, and he forms that like big yellow energy shield and then fires it at Godzilla. That's just so cool. So on a visual level, that's my favorite Ghidorah, but just in general, just as a character, it's the Showa one. He's just classic.
You know, Nick, I 1000% agree with you. No, I'm going to say 3000 for Ghidorah. I love the GMK design, you know, like the whole, he's more religious character, more mystical. I think it just fits perfectly like a glove for Ghidorah.
Yeah.
Because he's always been sort of a religious character in a sense, just visually tied to either it's America or Japan, or in the case of the anime trilogy, some random aliens. But yeah, I love his GMK design, little Varan details on his face. I love his eyes. Like they're kind of like they're friendly eyes, but you can tell he can still be, you know, fierce.
Yeah,
I think
and I love the fangs too.
Oh, the fangs! Yeah, they're so cool.
Yeah.
Like, I love that he's a bit of an underdog in the movie. I think it works because he still has his moments against Godzilla.
Definitely.
And I just love that. I think it's because growing up, I only had like 2 Ghidorah figures, and they're both GMK from like, I think 2002 toy lines. I think is Bandai America, and that design just holds a special place in my heart. And I was so happy they brought it back for that ad last year, and these 2 most recent short films. You know,
me too.
Like, I'm glad that guy's getting some more love. But
me too. I have let me get off screen for a second here. I have a big GMK Ghidorah Bandai figure right here. I love him.
Oh, he's gorgeous.
He's one of my absolute favorite figures that I own.
Man,
he's just great. I love him.
I love his pose.
Me too.
Oh.
I love. I don't know. I love. Sorry. Let me restart that. I love Ghidorah in that movie. I know I've seen some people, not a lot, because GMK is like a absolute fan favorite Godzilla movie. But I've seen some people here and there saying they don't really like Ghidorah being like the heroic monster in that movie. But I think it works for that film. And personally, I'm okay with it because as long as Godzilla and Ghidorah are enemies, to me, that's what matters. Like, I wouldn't want to see them team up. But as long as they're enemies, I'm cool with you reversing their roles, because to me, it's like the most important thing is that they hate each other.
Oh yeah, yeah. We can't have the dinosaurs and dragons getting along. You can't do that.
And yeah, I do also really love how mythical he is, because King Ghidorah is, like you said, he's always kind of he has this sort of mythical look to him, with like the manes and everything in the Showa era and stuff. And, you know, again, he's like a big golden dragon with these long necks. It's like a very mythical looking creature.
Very awe-inspiring too.
Yeah, definitely. So I think going this whole like, oh, he's like this ancient like deity that will, you know, defend the land and everything. I think that's like, if you're gonna make Ghidorah a hero, I think that's the good way. I think that's the way to do it, rather than keeping him as like an alien. And I know that I can't remember his name. I can't remember the name of the director. Okay, Kaneko. Kaneko. Yes, thank you. I know Kaneko had to swap him in for Varan and Anguirus because Toho wanted more recognizable monsters. But I think it still works. I think he works in that role, like I said, for his mythical look and everything. I think he translates well into that kind of character.
Definitely. And I would even say, like, if Toho were to, you know, reintroduce this idea in the future, even though I know they brought him back in the short film and just made him an alien with that design, yeah. But I think you could still have, like, a mystical good guy Ghidorah, and you could give Varan his evil role he was supposed to have in that one unmade Heisei film, you know, as, like, the end of the world demon thing. So I think you could still have the best of both worlds, you know, of those two. But
definitely.
Yeah, I am glad they did pick Ghidorah. I think of one of the few times, you know, having Toho intervene actually worked out for the better.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's just me. But, yeah, I love, you know, he's gold. Like, to me, that's so unique. And, like, just, it commands, like, your attention, you know, including his gigantic wingspan and his roar, man. Like, the GMK roar is incredible. I like that they built off the Showa one, like the bell ringing noise. Like, that's just so iconic. And
I think... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think for me, yeah, the Ghidorah roar in that movie is my favorite. It's so cool. And I think that one and his roar in King of the Monsters are, like, a really, really good way to, like, modernize the original King Ghidorah roar, especially when it comes to King of the Monsters. That scene where the beginning of their fight in Antarctica, when they first lay eyes on each other in that movie, and they have that like sort of roaring match. He sounds real good in that scene. Like, that's just straight up like such a great way to recreate that sound in a way that sounds more like a living, breathing animal, as that movie was going for.
Definitely. Like, I do think the Monsterverse knocked it out with Godzilla, Ghidorah, and King Kong's new roars. Like, it's recognizable, but it sounds like them, you know what I mean?
I agree.
I just wish Rodan had a bit more of, like, that jet noise in his roar. But,
same.
Yeah, that Ghidorah, like, the way, like, you can just hear the ibidi-bidi-bidi, you know, like, when he's roaring, or, like, when he's doing his big roar on the volcano.
Yeah.
Or the Boston fight. That is really cool. And, like, I know, I'm sure you've heard me say it in past discussions, like, you know, the MV Ghidorah may not be my favorite, but I do like a lot of things about him. Like his roar, his size, and like how they gave him the wing beams from Rebirth of Mothra 3.
Yeah.
Like that's insane that in a Hollywood movie they remembered that movie. Like
I know, it's so cool.
Like I recently watched Rebirth of Mothra 3 again recently, and I still love that film. You know, the soundtrack.
Oh,
It's just the way King Ghidorah is portrayed in that film is so cool. Like he has some really cool abilities, like the wing thing I mentioned, and it's insane that like during Kawakida's reign as the Tokusatsu guy at Toho from the Heisei era through some of the 2000s, like during Kawakida's reign, he made like I don't know, like 5 Ghidorah suits if you think about it, which is insane.
Oh, I know.
Like, he did the 91 design, then Mecha, which I think was a separate suit. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was. I don't know if they used parts of the 91 suit or if they just like recreated like the heads or whatever, but I do know that it was so heavy that they couldn't actually have an actor in it. And that's why it doesn't like walk or anything. It just kind of stands there. Yeah.
So we have those two. Then we have Death Ghidorah, that absolute beast. And then we have, in Rebirth of Mothra 3, we also got 2 more designs with Cretaceous, which I just found out was our buddy Andrew's favorite King Ghidorah.
Yeah.
Shout out to him. And then we have the Grand design that's in the main part of the film. And I do think that if you're not going to give King Ghidorah manes, then you at least have to focus on his sort of horns. Or in the case of Rebirth of Mothra 3, they gave him antlers that look incredible, like those Easter antlers. And I love that design so much.
I agree. I think it's a great design. And I love Cretaceous Ghidorah. It's just like a super like... Hey, I think, in my opinion, a slight nitpick I have is that he looks too different for me to be like the same creature, even if he's way younger.
Yeah.
But still a great design nonetheless. I just recently rewatched the first Rebirth of Mothra with my friend Corey, who I've been showing all the Godzilla and Mothra films. And Death Ghidorah, while technically a separate character, but I want to bring him up anyway, is so cool. I love his, like, he does the quadrupedal Ghidorah design, in my opinion, a little better than Kaiser Ghidorah would later down the line. And I love his like black and gray coloration with the red wings and like just the streams of fire out of his mouths. Such an awesome design.
Yeah, like I love that you can tell, like, just from his qualities, he's a separate being from King Ghidorah. Even if King Ghidorah, didn't appear later in that universe, you could still like see him as his own guy.
Yeah.
While at the same time, he has the Ghidorah things that we know, like the 3 heads, he's from space, and he's a jackass, jerk face, But I like that they gave him fire abilities. Like it makes him separate. I know he has some like red lightning a little bit in some of his abilities, I think. But yeah, I love his roars too, like those elephant roars. Like I remember catching that on cable TV back when cable TV was a thing when I was a kid. And I was like, what is this thing? What is this sacred movie I've never heard about?
Something that's funny is with that roar, I didn't realize like I knew it sounded like an elephant, but I didn't know it was like an actual elephant sound that they just used for that roar until one day I went in this sort of like walk-in attraction at our local amusement park, Kennywood. They have an attraction called Noah's Ark, and it's just like you walk in like through Noah's Ark basically. And at one point when you walk past like these like animatronic elephants, they're like barely moving. They barely count as animatronics, but I heard the sound effect that they used for Death Ghidorah, and I was like, oh, okay.
Told me Noah's Ark took Death Ghidorah's sound effects. Oh man, maybe they couldn't fit him on the boat because he counted as 3 animals and not 2. Oh man, that's dope though. Like just hearing that some tokusatsu sounds in the wild, and like it's like your G fan brain activates, and you're like, huh?
It's like watching the animated Pokemon films, which I think are distributed by Toho in Japan, and a lot of them will use Toho's kaiju roars, like Giratina. I'm trying to remember. I think it was Giratina used someone's roar. It might have been the Heisei Ghidorah roar. Oh, you might have heard Jack just now. My cat. Let me let him out of the bedroom real quick before he starts yelling.
Gotcha.
Okay. I don't remember which monster, but I remember the Pokemon Giratina, or it might have been Palkia or Dialga. One of the Gen 4 legendaries used a Toho monster roar, and I remember as a kid like being really confused about like, because I didn't realize Toho distributed them in Japan, so I was like, how'd they get away with that? But that's unrelated, but I just thought of that because you mentioned hearing Toku sounds in the wild.
Right? It's like, how dare they? Or is it just for me? But yeah, like, having all these cool King Ghidorah variants is so nice, you know? Like,
yeah.
Like, we can talk about, like, one-offs, like a Biollante or Orga all day, because, like, you know, they can get so much out of one appearance. Mm-hmm. With guys like King Ghidorah, he pops up so much, like, we could talk about so many cool things, and that's what I love about him. And one little thing I noticed, and I was listening to the G-Force episode about versus King Ghidorah from the Heisei era, and I don't think anyone mentioned it, and I noticed it during my most recent watch. Like, you know, I'm okay that they couldn't put the green manes on his design, because, like, I guess it couldn't work, but I like that the Doras had the green hair. Like the little, I was like, that's such a cute detail, and you know, that satisfied me at least.
Yeah, I agree. I like that too. One thing I would love to see one day is a Ghidorah with manes that go all the way down his necks, like to his back. I think that would be really cool.
Oh, that'd be badass.
Yeah.
Would you want it to be green, or you think they should make it like red or gold?
I feel like, I don't know, I'd have to see it, you know, before I make my final decision, but I think I'd keep it gold. But, you know, if I were in charge of a Godzilla movie, I would probably play around with the colors a little bit of the mains. Oh yeah,
because after all, playing around with colors is how we got him to be gold in the first place, right?
Exactly.
And like, speaking of colors, it's so cool that new short film gave him the gravity beams from the 91 poster where he's entangled around Godzilla. He's got the red and the blue, and like you said earlier, they actually made it into gravity beams when he picks up Godzilla in that film, the short film.
Yeah,
I was like, hell yeah, like they finally did something.
Yeah, that was a super cool moment. I also love their beam clash at the beginning, and Ghidorah's side of the frame is completely yellow from the gravity beams, and Godzilla's side of the frame is completely blue from the atomic breath. It just looks awesome.
Oh yeah, like they complement each other really well.
I agree.
And like, speaking of King Ghidorah himself, one thing I noticed on all these recent watches, you know, like, you know, we've talked about it in Godzilla vs. Gigan, where at the end he loses mind control, but he keeps up the fight.
Yeah.
Or, of course, you know, in his first appearance, he kept fighting because that was his whole thing. Or I think in Invasion of Astro Monster, the final fight when they actually start, you know, turning against each other is when they lose mind control, right? And Ghidorah, you know, he knocks him into the ocean, Godzilla and Rodan. But I really liked how, I guess I noticed it this time around, how in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, he actually loses the mind control pretty quick during their fight. And
yeah, he does.
He keeps fighting Godzilla, like, so he does have some agency in that one. He was, he was like, you know, screw this guy.
Yeah.
And Godzilla starts laying the beat down on him, and just, you know, it's always nice to see him still have some kind of like fighting spirit without the mind control. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I like that he also, if I'm remembering right, I think there is a point where he does try to fly away after the fight keeps going. And I like that because it feels like how the Showa King Ghidorah would just, like, his first couple appearances and then versus Gigan, he would just kind of like escape at the end. So it felt like a nice little nod to that. But Godzilla doesn't let him get away so easily.
Yeah.
I love the fight in that movie. Both fights are so cool.
Yeah. like the scale in both of them. Like we got one countryside fight like the old times. And we actually got to see them fight in a gigantic, metropolis, and it was beautiful. Oh man,
I agree.
I love the trope of Godzilla picking up King Ghidorah by his two tails and slamming him on the ground.
Yes.
I think, was it Gigan that started that, or am I wrong?
He does it by his necks and Gigan, which is so cool. Yeah.
I love that trope, and I think it happens in Final Wars too. Just the sight of Godzilla picking up this humongous monster and tossing it around, like, I love it.
If they bring back Ghidorah in the MonsterVerse, they need to have that happen.
I was surprised it didn't happen. I mean, I guess Ghidorah was the one that picked up Godzilla that time, but, nothing beats Godzilla, like, before the bloodlust kicks in. He just wants to torment Ghidorah a little bit. Oh, man.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to talk a little more about MonsterVerse Ghidorah, if that's cool.
Oh, yeah, I was too.
Okay, cool. I think... design-wise, I think it's a great design, King Ghidorah in the MonsterVerse. It's not my favorite. I wish the horns were a little more extravagant, and I wish that the colors of the movie weren't so oppressive, if that makes sense. Like they're tinting so that way King Ghidorah could actually look gold, but. Other than that, I really like what they do with him in that movie. I love like the storms, how his flying. He's so powerful that when he flies, he creates these massive hurricanes that just follow him around. That is such a cool concept. I'm not really all that like crazy about him. Like, as cool as the scene is, I'm not crazy about all of the monsters like becoming like submissive to him. I don't really like the movie taking the title king so literally when it comes to the monsters, but other than that, I think Ghidorah is super cool in that movie. And I would love for him to like return somehow. Like, again, I know everyone wants other monsters, and I do too, but also I would like to see that version of King Ghidorah again.
Yeah, I did like him in the MonsterVerse, I just think the actual film kind of did him a disservice sometimes. But,
that's fair.
Like you said, like, I wish, like, when I think of a big Hollywood King Ghidorah, I would imagine him always being bright gold.
Yeah.
Like, I just think that would be more like, as we talked about earlier in this discussion, like, he commands your attention. I mean, he still does because he's a big three-headed dragon coming to get you. But you know what I mean? Like him in the background, like the gold. I wish we saw more gold. All we really get is his, lightning, his gravity beams. But so, like I want to see the real, like, just gold scales proclaiming himself, like, I am here. Look at me. I'm the jackass here. But
I do love how when he uses the gravity beams, you can like see the gold, like the gold light from his lightning, like charging up in his throat. That's a really cool. It's a really cool effect, and it's also a really cool sort of parallel to Godzilla's charging up his atomic breath in his spines. I like that they gave him that little visual flavor.
Oh yeah, that was a great detail.
Yeah.
Like you can feel like the destruction that's about to happen. Mm-hmm. And only other, two nitpicks I have with them in that movie is the wing walking. I know it's been years, but like, and we all kind of saw it coming, which I think is kind of a disappointing thing, like they still went with the wing walking when all the fan art like in 2016 was doing that, because it's like, I think that's in tandem with the gold coloration. Like he is evil, and he is a conniving evil guy, but I still think that like he doesn't need to be like the king that crawls and does evil things. He can still be evil, but still be like always like having his wingspan, taking up everything, and just being like the bold destructive monster that he is. But that's just my kind of nitpick, because Yamazaki's design did the wing walking even worse, because they gave him grippers, they gave him hands. He's like that strangler guy from SpongeBob. And but to go back to the MonsterVerse one, like I do wish he also had the mains. I know once again it was in the
Yeah.
concept art, but I don't know what the excuse was this time since it was CGI. But all those nitpicks aside, and I do agree with the whole king thing. I don't know. For me, Rodan shouldn't have bowed down to him of all characters.
Yeah.
But that's a discussion for another time for Rodan. But it's also weird because I think they only call him King Ghidorah once in the whole movie. Like they only give him the title once. And Planet Eater does the same thing. It's like
it's very strange.
It's like keep the king in the name, you know. It's like calling MF Doom, you know, all caps. But
yeah, I do like that in Godzilla X Kong. Whenever Bernie mentions him, he does call him King Ghidorah.
Yeah, dude, that was so cool because that guy he name drops King Ghidorah and Mechagodzilla.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, there's actually some continuity.
But speaking of the ride, with the Yamazaki directed short film, it's really cool. I do really enjoy watching that. The camera rip footage on YouTube, but
oh yeah, the 480p.
I do agree. Yeah, I do agree. I don't like that. I love Yamazaki. He's the king currently, but I don't like that he gave Ghidorah hands in that.
And beaks.
In that short film. It's so weird. Yeah, and the beaks are so weird. Like I don't like, I'm glad if this is his experimental Ghidorah design, I'm glad that he did it in the ride and not in like a movie or something, just like a little short film for a ride. That's fine with me, but it is such a weird design. Why beaks?
Why grippers? Why wing walking? Why beaks? Yeah. And why the blue blood? You told me Toho won't let Godzilla, cause some blood of, red blood spewing everywhere. Like, remember the roots, Toho? I'm kidding. But yeah, the hands, all that's weird. And he's not exactly gold in that one either. He's more of a muted, not beige, but you know what I mean? Maybe it's just a filter that, post-war Japan filter, they call it. But the worst thing about that ride is what they do to our boy, Rodan. We never get a look at him. He just pops up, see my hand in the corner? Like, that's how you see him. That's how you see Rodan, and then King Ghidorah just shoots him away. It's like, not again!
It's like when SpongeBob sees that Krusty Krab commercial, and he sees, the very top of his head in, the background. He's like, look, Gary, there I am!
Oh, man. Justice for Rodan, right?
Yes.
I hope we can have a day where he chops off one of Ghidorah's necks or something. I don't know. But oh man. And in Singular Point, seeing Rodan get mutilated for 13 episodes in a row kind of
oh my god
broke my heart after the 5th episode. I was like, oh. But King Ghidorah, he also took Rodan's sound effects every now and then.
He did indeed in the Heisei era. It's such a weird choice. I don't think it sounds bad, but I don't prefer it for Ghidorah. I don't like when they bring it back. I don't like that they brought it back for Planet Eater. I wanted him to have I feel like the GMK Ghidorah sound effects would have been a little more fitting for that version of him. Just because they're sort of almost creepier in a way. And that was a very creepy Ghidorah. I actually love him in that movie. I think his fight with Godzilla is disappointing, but I love his entrance. Whenever they summon him, and he starts he starts off small for some reason, but when they summon him, his neck's his head's coming through the portal in the ship, and he starts decapitating everyone and dismembering them. It's so creepy.
Yeah, it was like his shadow, right? And the first summon.
It was creepy. It was so weird, but I love it.
I agree. I do like the Planet Eater one. I wish we got to see the full body because, I own the figure from that movie. With, it's like a little Bandai. He's mostly just a glowing gold thing I have on my shelf back at home.
Yeah.
But he has the tails and all that, little feet too. But I do like how he was portrayed in that. He was the one he was the mastermind behind it. You know, I think he was controlling Mephiles, or I think that was his name. And you know, I don't think he had gravity beams in that, just lightning bolts a little bit. Like
yeah, they kind of like shot out from him, like from his necks, like they just kind of like jutted out. And
yeah, but I do like his, you know, his portrayal in that. Like he is intimidating, and of course, you know, the second he appears, Godzilla's like, oh, I want to kick his ass.
Yeah, like I love like that moment whenever he shows up. Like like I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie, but like when Ghidorah like finally like appears on Earth, and Godzilla's just off somewhere else. Like he's just like walking somewhere else, and then like you kind of see it in his eyes that he's like noticing something, and then he just turns around and starts making his way over, and I love that moment so much. I think it's so cool.
Yeah, man, like I know a lot of people aren't fans of the anime trilogy, you know, and like, but one thing I will always praise that series for is Godzilla himself. Like, yes. I know this is a King Ghidorah video, but it ties into King Ghidorah. Like, the fact that we had a Godzilla that kicked humanity's ass and aliens, but like you still root for him is amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool that like he's like this huge menace throughout the entire trilogy until the third movie, when suddenly we have to root for him, because if he doesn't beat King Ghidorah, then like everything is over, and I love that kind of thing.
Right. And like you said, like his eyes in those movies, like he doesn't move a lot, but when you see his blue eyes, like you know he's thinking. And,
yeah.
Like, you know, he's the Godzilla we all know from back in the day. He's just an old man, but
yeah.
Like, I love like we get to see him. You know, even though he's so big, he tries to fight Ghidorah, and
yeah,
you know he can't do much, but he even uses burning mode, which is cool.
Yeah.
Like we got to see it burning Godzilla like twice in 2019 because King of the Monsters also came out. You know, It's weird how that happens, but oh man, I like the fact that this one thing to kind of talk about King Ghidorah, right? Like you said earlier, we love seeing him fight Godzilla every time because you know it's going to be a good brawl. Even if Ghidorah escapes, he's going to come back. You know, he's going to come back somehow. It's you know, it's a good fight. But I love that in Planet Eater, the second, like always, that Ghidorah, you know, loses his edge, Godzilla just goes in the pound town and starts kicking his ass. Like he breaks one of the jaws of one of the heads, then he blows them all up. He uses the tail beam. Like it's poetry, you know.
It's super cool.
I do want to talk about Ghidorah's like themes, if you want to, like.
Yeah.
Like I know we have the classic theme, the dun dun, that is probably most famous and versus King Ghidorah. But, you know, like when you go back as you're older and you realize, wait a minute, that's actually from Ghidorah, Three-Headed Monster. Like, that's such a cool realization.
It sounds so good in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Like it sounded great in the Showa era too. But something about like I guess like the updated technology with like recording music and everything, it just sounds so much beefier. It could be just attributed to however many people, you know, Ifukube had like in the orchestra or whatever at the time, but it sounds so much bigger and more menacing in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, and I think it's like the definitive version of that theme.
Oh, it's a gorgeous theme. You're right.
It really is. She needed me to taste the teriyaki sauce, make sure it was good.
Was it good?
It's really good.
Was it like Teruzawa and versus King Ghidorah when he's opening the noodles? He's like, oh, finally food.
Yeah.
But I like his GMK theme as well.
Yeah.
And the Monsterverse one's pretty good too. And Planet Eater.
I love. Yeah, honestly, he like across the board, his themes are great. The GMK one is super good and fits that version of the character perfectly. A very mysterious but also like awe-inspiring theme. And then the one in King of the Monsters is like extremely ominous. Like they really cranked up the danger factor with the way that theme sounds, with like the the chanting and everything, and like that big choir. It's so cool and so like creepy. And then the one in Planet Eater, shout out to Takayuki Hattori, who's great.
The goat.
Yes. That one's also like very creepy and just very eerie, and it's a little more subtle, but in a way that like really works. Just the very high pitched like strings, and then like the sort of like big like shrieking notes and everything. It plays in perfectly to the more horror oriented Ghidorah in that film. And I think, like I said, just all across the board, King Ghidorah always has a great theme, just like Mechagodzilla.
Oh yeah, the two goats.
Yes.
And of course those two happen to be in the anime trilogy, huh? But
yeah,
you're right, in Planet Eater he sounds like a serial killer, which I think fits.
Yes.
Like, the whole scene he's taking off heads and all that, like
yeah.
man. And like, yeah, I do like how in all his themes, like, he can be intimidating in different ways. Like, he's a serial killer in a way, like the way the violin plays in Planet Eater, or in King of the Monsters, he's like sounds like there's some weird cult chanting his name as the apocalypse comes. Or,
yeah.
Even his GMK theme, it just feels otherworldly, but still close to us, and like, it's just wonderful the way that, he may not communicate a lot, like visually, but his themes and his mannerisms are able to convey so much emotion out of King Ghidorah. And I think that's why he's just such a great enemy for Godzilla, you know what I mean?
I agree.
Oh yeah. Like, I do think, like, they could definitely, like, you can have him being an alien, I know more recent outings make him more of a direct alien. But whether it's, being a weird dimensional thing or having his organs regenerate in an instant. But I think, like, he can be alien, but still a religious sort of figure. Because, like, if you take a more of an Eastern approach, which is the one I kind of prefer with King Ghidorah's performances, with, like, having the manes and the antlers and, like, the heavenly appearance, like, with that in mind, I think you could still have him being an alien, but still being tied to, like, legends and folk tales of being, like, a heavenly dragon, so to speak, that came from the heavens to attack us. Like, he can still be an antagonist or a good guy while still being an alien and having the mystical elements as well. Kind of like how Godzilla came from Odo Island, his legend, and but we know him more as a creature made by atomic bombs, right? Like, if you peel back Godzilla and King Ghidorah, they have a lot of legends behind them that I think just kind of add some nice flavor to them.
I agree, and I think that's another cool thing about King of the Monsters, is how, like, they have this sort of element of all of the monsters have this sort of, like, ancient, like, lore to them. Like, these ancient humans knew of them and wrote about them, and sort of passed these legends down. Even Ghidorah, who's an alien, and yeah, I just think that's a really cool thing about that movie. It's actually one of my favorite things about it. So yeah, I don't know. That's just something I appreciate about that movie. I don't like all of the recent MonsterVerse stuff, but I think a cool thing about that movie is the sort of how all of the monsters are like legends. I think that's cool.
Yeah, like, I definitely, I do think they made Ghidorah distinct enough in that timeline from the Mutos, since they're both ancient enemies, but I do like how he has a shared history with Godzilla. I think it's nice.
Yeah.
And bonus points in retrospect. New Empire did one thing right. It was Mothra's people all along that were at least writing some of these stories. So that made me happier that knowing it was at least some kind of Toho thing we know about. Like how Mothra and King Kong's people be from a similar heritage. That was kind of cool. But
I agree, it was cool.
I do wish that, like, they maybe talked about his alien stuff a little more in King of the Monsters. It's such, like, a throwaway line in the film that he might as well have still been from Earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, you'd think these scientists would be like, you'd think their minds would be blown about the fact that, like, they have a confirmed alien like on Earth.
Yeah.
There was so much going on in that movie that they probably just didn't have time to get into it.
Yeah, like that really was just the Godzilla and King Ghidorah movie in retrospect. You know,
Yeah.
cameos from a lot of things. But I think like one thing I do, what was I gonna say? Like it's funny in the MonsterVerse, they're like, yeah, King Ghidorah and Mechagodzilla back to back because
Yep.
you know that's one of the probably sell toys. But I do think that I'm glad King Ghidorah is an alien. Like
Me
even
too.
though he still was an ancient rival, and they did that once again with, you know, the big red monkey and the big ice dragon in the room.
Yeah.
King Ghidorah and the Mutos were really still distinct enough. You know, it felt fresh.
I
And
agree.
of course, we got a Monster Zero reference in King of the Monsters, which is bonus points.
Yeah.
You know,
I
think
also
it's-
love that that his ghost like possesses Mechagodzilla essentially because they use his
Oh.
brain or whatever, or not his brain, his skull, and I guess his like. I mean, they probably have some kind of weird like pseudoscience explanation for it, but like I read it as like his spirit like still inhabited that skull or something, and like basically just took over Mechagodzilla, and I think that's so awesome.
Yeah, I forgot all about that part. But yeah,
It also, like, in a weird, like, convoluted kind of way, still keeps Mechagodzilla's alien origins intact, too, if you think about it. Because
yeah.
it's like he's possessed by an alien. So, I don't know, it's cool. I think it's a really cool way to link Godzilla's two greatest enemies.
Yeah, and I do like there's still a bit of a Mechagodzilla personality that comes out beyond the robot and beyond Ghidorah, too, you know? Like,
Yeah.
you can tell the data they gave him, like the Kiss of Death, still showed
Oh,
up
yeah.
in the Mechagodzilla program. But yeah, that is cool they were able to have King Ghidorah, you know, still be mentioned, or Toho allowed them to mention him in versus Kong and X Kong. I do appreciate that a lot.
I agree. It's cool that we have an American Godzilla movie that has King Ghidorah in it. Like, I just think that's just cool that we live in that kind of world now.
Definitely.
Yeah. Regardless of whether or not, you know, regardless of who likes the movie and who doesn't, it's just cool to me that the classic Godzilla characters are all, you know, present in American pop culture, I guess.
Definitely. It's just weird because like they did release King of the Monsters in a very hot spot for Hollywood. You know, I wonder if they could have released it like 3 months later. You know, but
Yeah.
but
Like,
yeah,
I wonder
like,
what kind of business it would have done, like, in, like, a different year, you know? Like,
yeah,
when things, like, cooled down and we didn't have it, like, right after Avengers Endgame.
right. And then Godzilla and Kong had to do after the pandemic.
Yeah.
I think only like the New Empire kind of had a decent like normal world to release in, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I remember the New Empire and Bernie's weird like Discord thing or his Twitter account. There was like I think he even said out loud there's some guy called Ghidorah fan that was like
Ghidorah
trolling him.
Stand 64.
Yeah, the 64, that's awesome. But it's like, I mean, it makes sense. Like for me, something absurd as that makes sense because there are people like that in the real world. But the fact that someone was like a fan of the guy who trashed, I mean, most of it was off screen in the destruction, but he destroyed like the entire East Coast.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I do wish we got one scene of Ghidorah just flying without the hurricane and all the CGI glory just blowing up DC.
Yeah, I was always disappointed that we don't actually see the attack on DC. Like, it looks like it was insane. So it would have just been cool to actually see that. Like, you know, again, there's a lot of stuff in that movie, so I get that, like, they just kind of had to keep it moving, but it would have been cool to see a classic, like, King Ghidorah rampage.
Definitely. Like, it's Hollywood budget. Can't they do it, you know?
There's been a sad lack of monster rampages in the MonsterVerse. Not a lot of city attacks or anything, you know?
Like, Nick, I can't believe the New Empire kind of gave us it, but once again, it's off screen. Like, Godzilla just murders all of Spain off screen, right? After he attacks France and after he was in Italy. It's like, Godzilla went to Europe. He wasn't even in America in his last 2 outings.
Yeah.
But,
we Sorry, Jack just put his paw on the screen and did something on the touch screen. Okay, anyways.
Does he want to talk too?
But yeah, it's like, I mean, at least we got to see him fight the military a little bit in that one. But I would love for the next one to have like an actual like monster attacking the city scene, you know?
Yeah, like I'm starving for it. You know,
Me
Nick.
too.
Like I think Kong Survival Instinct. I watched a playthrough. Somehow we got King Kong trashing a city between films, but we couldn't get Godzilla or King Ghidorah doing it.
We got a little bit of Mechagodzilla doing it for like a minute.
Oh yeah, it was a good minute.
Yeah, it was a good minute.
Because like in the MonsterVerse, the death toll is insane.
Oh my god, it's nuts.
Man,
Especially with like the Hollow Earth and everything, like it could just show up anywhere whenever they want. It's not
like right now, you know, they could just make a sinkhole and oh, there goes a landmark that everybody loves.
Yeah.
There goes tourism. Like I've been to DC, so I was really hoping that I see King Ghidorah trash everything. But
Yeah, King Ghidorah and Rodan.
yeah. I think one nitpick I have of CGI is, I mean, Shin Godzilla didn't do it because it made him more like a man in suit, you know. But I feel like if they're CGI in films, they react a little too much to missiles hitting them. But that's just me.
Yeah.
Like Ghidorah and Godzilla do it, and I'm like, you know.
It's especially weird, like, I don't mind it so much in -1 because it's like he's got the, like, regeneration.
Yeah.
And I guess Ghidorah has that too in King of the Monsters, but something about the way Ghidorah reacts to missiles in that movie is so weird to me because he's also, like, so big.
Yeah.
Like, at least in -1, Godzilla is just like, you know, the average 50 meters, but Ghidorah was like the biggest he'd ever been in King of the Monsters, and he's still like reacts like he's in pain when missiles hit him, and it's just weird.
I think that's why the wing walking bugs me, because of the way they have him postured. It looks like he's trying to hide too. He's like, don't hit my heads, you know. Like in the Antarctic scene you talked about, like the way he's kind of using his wings. I think it was unintentional, but you know, like maybe it's just me, because like even in 2014. I'm glad in retrospect with the Monarch show they showed that Godzilla did, you know, take out some people during that scene, but it was weird that like you know, he's getting hit and he's like,
Yeah.
Even Rodan kind of gets hit and he's like,
Yeah.
It's like, don't give the U.S. military that much credit. Do not. These are kaiju. Let them kick their ass.
Yeah.
But I know they're probably not allowed to because they have to use military vehicles in the films, you know.
Well, I mean, I think with I mean, I don't know about everything, but I know a lot of King of the Monsters. It was like a lot of fictional weaponry, like the big ship. I don't remember the name of it at the moment. What the hell was that thing called?
Gotengo? I'm kidding.
Argo. Yeah, the Argo, and then you know you had like G-Team. Like they're not wearing like actual like military stuff. Like they've got like their logo and everything on it. So I don't know how much the U.S. military was involved with that, but I know they definitely had an involvement with 2014 and hindered certain things with that movie's production. Like Godzilla was supposed to fight the military on Alcatraz, but they didn't let him do it.
Is that disappointing? Like from the very start of a MonsterVerse, they still want to control Godzilla. I don't like that. Like let him have some bloodlust, you know? Like. Okay, U.S. military, you let Godzilla kill the magic school bus full of kids in the Monarch show, but you're not gonna let him flick a tank. Like, come on, you know, or they're gonna let him destroy Europe and Hong Kong, but not the U.S. You know what I mean?
I do like as a character thing though with 2014. I do like this idea that he kind of just ignores them because he's just so focused on. Excuse me. Because he's just so focused on the Mutos, like that I don't really mind, but it does bug me that like that they interfered with the movie that much that they had to take out like an entire action sequence.
Right? Because like the Mutos, they get their due because it's terrifying. They can just knock out with EMPs, you know.
Yeah.
But I was hoping for Godzilla to get just a little angry, you know, like they still have him be angry and save the day, like in the Heisei era where he murders an entire platoon of new recruits every year, so he has to start the recruitment process over for G-Force and JCF. But he still saves the day, like in Space Godzilla. He fights like the Navy for some reason, even though he's supposed to be helping them.
They used stock footage from Godzilla vs. Biollante, I think.
That's right, they used stock footage again. Oh man, but like even Godzilla 2000 had him still interact with the military, even though I think we talked about it. He doesn't really fight back in that one either.
Yeah.
I mean, he was about to, but then of course, the big UFO in the room interfered. But
yep.
Yeah, I do wish the U.S. military didn't interfere as much. Like I think even to this day you can still see it, where only King Kong can destroy them, or at least a past version of them, as in Skull Island. Or, I mean, that was a beautiful scene because he got justice for his 1976 counterpart. But,
yeah, on those same helicopters.
Right? Like, it's cool the MonsterVerse is full of so much rich fan service. Like, it's not just King Ghidorah and Godzilla, it's also King Kong. But I do think to this day, like, the new Empire and versus Kong, like, they had to work their way around it, Like, it's either drones that they're fighting, like drone aircraft, or... I mean, Godzilla does get to fight the Navy a little bit in versus Kong, but it's more of a set piece for the actual fight,
Yeah.
Oh man, but it is interesting because I know like they definitely interfered with the older Transformer films, because you remember those, the U.S. military had a bunch of screen time like blowing things up. But
yeah,
I was happy that Rise of the Beast had no military, it's just Transformers. But anyway, different tangent about aliens. How about the alien dragon? One thing I do love about King Ghidorah is that he usually has some kind of human connection in some way, even if it's maybe not direct. Like in his first appearance, he had the Venus Princess.
Yeah,
that was such a cool plot point. Like it was a spy thriller, and I love that whole film. You know what I mean? Or the Exilians and Invasion of Astro Monster. And you've heard me glaze versus Gigan a lot on a past Gigan episode, which, I love that film. And he's a surprise appearance in Destroy All Monsters, where he's, helping the slugs take over Earth. And then I know he's in Zone Fighter, and he fights in space. Is that right? I haven't seen Zone Fighter, but maybe you could tell us about that.
Venus.
Oh, Venus.
Zone Fighter fights Ghidorah on Venus, which is really cool. I don't think they really make any mention of, how he like destroyed the civilization there, but yeah, that's where Zone Fighter finally defeats him, because it's like a two-parter, and King Ghidorah is like so powerful that like, I think the first part, I think it's two-part. Let me actually fact check this really quick, just so I'm not saying anything wrong.
That is cool though, like that he's a big threat in the show.
Yeah. Let me go to Toho Kingdom.
Old TK, huh?
Yeah.
Brings back memories, man.
Oh yeah, me too. Alright. There's Zone Fighter. Here's the episode guide. There we go. Yes, okay, it's a two-parter, episodes 5 and 6. And King Ghidorah beats Zone Fighter so bad in the first episode. And then the second one, they have to like go to Venus. I don't remember why exactly they had to go to Venus. It's been a few years since I watched it, but yeah, that's where he fights him and beats him. It's very cool. It's really cool to see him on Venus. Like that's such a cool thing. I'm so glad they did that.
Yeah, it's very poetic.
Go watch Zone Fighter.
You're right. I gotta go watch it. That's cool. He goes back to a place he destroyed in Venus. And here's a plug. And if you haven't heard it already, go check out our GeForce podcast, Zone Fighter, complete coverage. It's amazing.
Yes. There are English subtitles for that show done by our good friend Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew came back.
Yeah. You can hit up GeForce. I'll probably tell you at the end of this where you can find us, but you can ask us where to find it and we'll let you know.
Yeah, our friend Andrew is great at translating and subbing Tokusatsu media. He's a legend.
Yes.
And Okay, speaking of tokusatsu TV shows around Zone Fighter, one of my personal favorites is Return of Ultraman. It came out around 1971 with Ishiro Honda involved in some episodes too.
Yeah.
But one thing that blew me away when I was watching with my younger brother years ago, I think it was 2021. God, yeah, that was years ago, man. There was an episode with like a tragic monster, but that's kind of besides the point because the kids in this episode in a classroom, they're just bickering, talking, gossiping, and they just straight up name drop King Ghidorah and Rodan. So,
Oh, that's so cool.
I was like, what? Like, obviously different continuity, but like these kids know King Ghidorah. Like, it's cool. Like, he just, even back then when he was still pretty recent creation, he's already popping up in other media.
That's really awesome.
And I'm sure you remember too, Nick. Like growing up with, cartoons and whatnot, you'd see King Ghidorah pop up in random homages.
Yeah, like Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy.
Yeah, was it Kingghidorah or something? He fights Ghidorah.
Yeah, it's like a big, giant, like 3-headed cat thing.
There's also Billy becomes Ultraman, and Courage the Cowardly Dog has straight up King Ghidorah stock footage.
Yes. Sorry, I just accidentally ripped one of my headphones out of my ear with my foot. It hurt so bad.
Oh, you're good. You're taking out the mind control device.
Exactly. But yeah, I remember seeing that on Courage and like being so excited because it's one thing whenever, it's cool that they homaged King Ghidorah and Gamera, I think, in that Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy episode, but they actually like showed like footage of him in an episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog, and I remember that just being so cool to me. I found that so exciting.
Right? Like, whenever I would see that as a kid, I would literally do the DiCaprio meme like this.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh! Oh, man. But yeah, like, seeing King Ghidorah pop up in random places is always wonderful. It shows how much of a cultural impact he's had with Godzilla. Probably next to, I don't know, Megalon too, just talking about that, the presence in Western media at least. But yeah, man, like King Ghidorah, just seeing him pop up in those random places always brings joy to my face.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Oh man. And one thing I really liked, I think we talked about it on the Gigan episode versus Gigan, was how when Gigan and King Ghidorah appear, it cuts to the JSDF, and they hear King Ghidorah's roar, and the commander, he's like, oh, that's King Ghidorah. Like, they know this guy, but then they don't know Gigan. And I think you talked about in the episode, like, there was Arthur, for like Tokusatsu media, and he talked about how that was what got him in the Godzilla films, because he was curious about, King Ghidorah already being known in that film.
Yeah, David Callett. It was... I don't remember exactly why he said this, but he said that it was the scene that like suddenly made him want to like become a historian for Godzilla movies. Like that scene fascinated him so much that, like, I think he said something like he just had to figure out like how we got to this point in those movies where you can have a scene like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because like I can share a similar sentiment with him, with David Callett, because that Godzilla kind of script I've been working on for years. The kind of like basis was already being like an established world, and the main character in my script was trying to wondering how we even got to this point, with his generation.
Yeah.
So it is cool how little details like that, and potentially often overlooked Godzilla films, can have such an impact on a viewer. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Like, it shows how long these guys have been around, but they're still kicking ass, and there can always be new stories to tell with these guys as well. Like, is there any potential King Ghidorah matchup you're wanting to see in the future, Nick? I know you talked about him coming back in the Monsterverse, but anything in particular on either Toho or Hollywood?
I mean, I think it's, we already got like a really cool one with Godzilla and Gigan teaming, or not Gigan. Let me redo that. We already got like a really cool one with Godzilla and Jet Jaguar teaming up against King Ghidorah, so that's like already like such an amazing thing to witness. But other than that, I think let me take a look at my shelf for some inspiration.
That's the best way to do it.
Really, like, I think it would just be cool to see like King Ghidorah and Mechagodzilla like in the same movie together. Like, I think honestly, like, just be a really cool way to like have a very tense fight where Godzilla has to take on both Ghidorah and Mechagodzilla, maybe without even any help. Like, that would be like crazy to see for me. And again, I know it's the whole thing of so many people want different monsters, but for me, like, those are like, you know, those are just the best of Godzilla's arch enemies to me. So like, it'd just be cool to see him have to fight the two of them together. I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, that would be amazing, man. Like, I agree, that'd be intense, and I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. The
Me too.
MonsterVerse and animes have blue-balled us a little bit, but like they was released next to each other in subsequent films, but they never actually interact. So, that'd be dope.
What about you? Did you have any?
Ooh, good question. I mean, I think Mecha King Ghidorah coming back, if I had to, be a little cheeky.
That'd be cool.
I wouldn't mind him being a cyborg. I love the cyborg. Like, as a kid, I remember I had like this weird puzzle. I don't know if it was a bootleg, off-brand puzzle, but it was the Mecha King Ghidorah design of the Futurian spaceship. And I had the Trin Masters as a kid, so I think Mecha King Ghidorah is dope. And he's always powerful in every game he's in.
Oh my god, yeah.
I would even go as far like a full-on Mecha King Ghidorah, but still make him different from Mechagodzilla. Like, I think bronze would be a cool color for a whole Mecha King Ghidorah.
Like that. There's like an old like piece
Showa
of
design,
art,
right?
Yeah, of like a completely like Mecha King Ghidorah that's like golden, and that's what that made me think of. So yeah, that'd be cool to see.
Yeah, like, I think I remember the design you're talking about. Doesn't he like have different eye colors or something?
I think so. I don't remember exactly.
Like, I would be happy to see that. I think that'd be cool. Maybe it's like the aliens made it as a defense against King Ghidorah, like a twist on the old Godzilla and King Ghidorah, or Godzilla Mechagodzilla concept. Yeah. But I would, besides that, I would love to see him and Rodan finally go at it again. Have a proper fight, considering Rodan was there for his first two appearances and destroy all monsters. Like, I think Rodan and King Ghidorah has been a long time coming. Like, I envision the scene of Rodan flying like at beyond supersonic speeds and just chopping all three heads off somehow. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just dreaming, but I think that'd be cool. But I do think King Ghidorah and Orga would be a fight I'd love to see.
Oh, that'd be crazy.
I feel like they would bounce off each other pretty well, and like, if you could imagine the Millennials wanting to make Orga out of Ghidorah in the first place instead of Godzilla, like, what would that translate as,
Yeah, that'd be crazy. That'd be pretty nuts.
That'd be cool, like, what if story,
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, man. But, I guess, do you want to maybe wrap it up, or?
Yeah, so I'm curious what your, like, top three... I mean, maybe you technically went over this in your recent ranking Godzilla movies video, but just, again, what are your top three movies that feature King Ghidorah?
Oh, that's a tough one, because, I love the guy. He's such a great antagonist, he's the big thug monster. I think my number 3 spot, oh man, probably Ghidorah, three-headed monster, I would say. It's just everything works, the whole build-up to his story, the way that he's an alien without explicitly showing any aliens, Like I always forget that film had full on possession of a human, but like
Oh, yeah.
what a leap, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think, yeah, I would put Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, at the number three spot. It's insane. Like he had his own title and a whole film.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Invasion is probably talked about more, or Monster Zero. But yeah, definitely Ghidorah at number three. Number two, to be honest, I think Rebirth of Mothra 3. It rose up in my rankings, and it was cool seeing King Ghidorah in a different light, having a fight.
Yeah.
There's no Godzilla for him to contend with. Instead, it's Mothra Leo and the Shobijin. And I just think that the way he's portrayed in the film is great. He's got that 90s aesthetic dialed to 1000, and he just looks wicked. And I love the new powers they gave him and his forms. And once again, he's stuck doing time travel, but I think it works for King Ghidorah. Like, whether it's space time or time travel, he's still gonna pop up.
Yeah. I like that movie a lot. And he's played by Tsutomu Kitagawa, who would later go on to play Godzilla in most of the Millennium series films, and who I met at G-Fest one year.
That's badass, man. Oh, I'm so jealous you got to meet him. But also, I didn't know he played Ghidorah in that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man. And it's funny we got Rebirth of Mothra 3 the same year we got Godzilla 98. It's like
I know. It's so weird to think about.
Right? It's like King Ghidorah was still kicking ass somewhere.
I have such a hard time reconciling those two movies as like coming out in like just months apart from each other.
Right? It's insane. But yeah, so my number three spot, Ghidorah, three-headed monster. Number two, Rebirth of Mothra 3. It's one of those films you stumble upon once you get access to the internet, and you're like, what? Yeah. That existed? Man. And my number one spot, I think you saw it coming, GMK. That connection I have to his figures growing up, and there's just something about that design. The fact that it came back in that commercial and the short films, it was a happy moment. But what's your top three, Nick?
For me, I think I'd have to go with, for my number three spot, and this is all subject to change because I am still in the middle of a big marathon with a friend of mine, and I'm only the last one we watched was Rebirth of Mothra, so I've still got some Ghidorah films to go, so things could change as I watch them again. But for me, I think number three is Destroy All Monsters. Now, I know King Ghidorah doesn't really have a huge role in that movie, but I think it's just a banging movie. And I think, for as much as it does become kind of a big gang beating towards the end of that fight, he puts up a pretty good fight at first, Yeah. He's pretty much giving it to everyone. And then it's not till Gorosaurus kicks him in the back that he really loses steam and starts to get his ass kicked. But he does a pretty good job. I think people overlook that the Earth monster team is actually having a tough time at first.
Yeah.
So that movie, like, I just love like the atmosphere of all the scenes with like the key locks, like the scene of the like attack on Monster Island with like the shootout and like the base and like all the like gas and everything. Like, there's just so much atmosphere there, and I love it. I think that movie is great. I think Sadamasa Arikawa deserves an award for the special effects in that film. But my number two spot. Oh, were you going to say something?
Oh no, I loved what you said about the film.
Okay. Yeah, my number two spot was I think I'd have to give it to Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. It's a movie I overlooked when I first saw it because for me, for whatever reason, it just didn't live up to Invasion of Astro Monster. But the more I watch it, the more I love it. And I think, there's a lot of really iconic stuff in that. I think that the princess is so cool, and I love that moment where she just like doesn't look at the camera, but she's just like looking straight ahead with her complete like blank stare and just says that Ghidorah will turn this planet into a tomb. It's such a cool, ominous moment. And like we said, his coming out of the meteor with the fire forming his body is just such an iconic scene. And his rampage is like probably the best Ghidorah rampage in my opinion. Just so much destruction. He really feels like a big threat. And then the fight at the end is really fun as well. And it's just cool to have this monster that like turns Godzilla into a good guy. Like without Ghidorah showing up and threatening everything, Godzilla would have just kept rampaging. But so it's also just an extremely important movie in the franchise. And my number one spot, I think I'd have to give to Invasion of Astro Monster, also known as Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. Like I said, it's just a very important movie to me because it was my first exposure to King Ghidorah, and I have fond memories of it. But other than that, I just love it for, I love all the human characters in that movie so much. I think they all have really good chemistry, and Nick Adams is so much fun, and Akira Kubo is really fun in that movie as the nerd whose name I can't remember, Tetsuo. There we go.
Oh yeah.
And, yeah, he's great. I love whenever him and Glenn have to break out of that like prison that the Exilians put them in. I think they just suddenly have like this really fun dynamic, and I like seeing them together. And of course, Akira Takarada is amazing as Fuji. So grumpy. The Exilians are awesome, like the first alien race in the Godzilla franchise. Well, the first that we see on screen. And Godzilla and Rodan fight King Ghidorah on another planet, and it's the coolest thing ever. Like, I don't care like how, people love to say that like the Showa movies are just like silly and goofy, and yeah, there's a lot of silly and goofy stuff. I mean, Godzilla dances in that same scene, but it's just something that just captures my imagination. Like I love that scene. It's a short fight, but it's just so much fun. And then they have a really fun but like short but sweet fight at the end too. Just I love like I love the moment whenever they all like sort of when Godzilla wakes up after their mind control breaks and they all go unconscious, and he wakes up and he sees Ghidorah there, and he like immediately has to wake up Rodan. He just slaps his tail onto him to get him to wake up because he's just like, dude, he's back. We gotta get him. Wake up. So good. I love that movie so much. All three of those movies are just incredible to me. And I will give a couple honorable mentions to GMK and Planet Eater, which I think are both great movies.
Hell yeah. I love the picks, Nick. Those are all top choices. I love the show of love. And yeah, it's cool that, because of King Ghidorah, Godzilla had to, stop being so grumpy, even though people didn't like him, and he had to, save the day. And then the next film, he was the reason Godzilla got to go to space.
Yes.
Like, it's insane, And I do like that the Monarch show brought back the orange jumpsuits from Invasion of Astro Monster just a little bit, and they even had a guy, White Russell, who kind of has the vibe of Nick Adams. But it's just cool how all of King Ghidorah's films have such a cultural like impact on the franchise. Like even Destroy All Monsters is still talked about as one of those films that's a lot of people can at least recall in some way in the franchise. Or, just the way King Ghidorah can pop up without Godzilla, whether it's fighting his own fighter or fighting Mothra. Like, he's just an antagonist, Like, you see it, it's like, you have to slay the dragon, so to speak. And it's always going to be a great fight.
He's one of the most iconic villains to me. Like he's up there to me with, like, Darth Vader and, like, damn, is that really the only villain I can think of? Darth Vader and like the Joker and like Doc Ock and Green Goblin. Like to me, like King Ghidorah and Mechagodzilla are like up there with them as like the top villains I think of when I think of a villain, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Like he definitely reminds me of like the Shredder in the 2003 cartoon and Ninja Turtles because you can beat King Ghidorah, but he just keeps coming back, and you're like, just stay dead, damn it. Oh man. That was a weird comparison because the Shredder becomes a dragon in one of the cartoons. Well, anyway, well, but I think the point stands. But yeah, he definitely reminds me of Darth Vader too, you know, or like you said, a lot of comic book villains, like that perfect kind of like they look so different from the hero, you know, like you think they wouldn't mix well, but they mix perfectly in the sense of they're so different and have to fight. And,
yeah, it's like this that contrast I was talking about earlier. It's kind of like the contrast between Batman and the Joker, where Batman's like, you know, even down to like the way they use color, where Batman is a very dark looking character, just like Godzilla has like this charcoal black skin and everything, and then the Joker's really colorful, and then Ghidorah's like this bright gold color. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's just, I just think it's cool when you got these villains and heroes who like have this visual contrast in a way to bring it full circle.
right?
To what I was saying earlier.
Yeah, it kind of shows that there's more to them than meets the eye, right? Like the whole looks can be deceiving kind of thing. And it's just so cool.
Absolutely.
Like I think Godzilla is very fortunate to have such a variety of villains or just rogues or something to punch, you know. Like,
I agree.
Like we've talked about King Ghidorah all day. He definitely fills a very unique role, and I'm so happy we can celebrate his 60th, you know, birthday. And like it's cool. You have King Ghidorah, you have Mothra, who's more of a feminine monster, and you know she's very like graceful. Then you have Mechagodzilla, who in one of my past videos I talked about. He's like Mechagodzilla's like what the Oxygen Destroyer is all about, you know, just something that can hurt Godzilla, but in the end, if you beat Godzilla, you're left with this horrible weapon you have to deal with, you know.
Yep.
Or, you know, even characters like Biollante and Ghidorah can also fill other things that fans love to talk about, and they've only like had one appearance pretty much. You know, it's cool that like we as fans can talk to each other and have all these fun discussions, and I think King Ghidorah is just, you know, a hell of a character, and I'm glad that, you know, seeing a dragon and a dinosaur fight is always awe-inspiring, and, you know, I'm going to hold that thought forever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I completely echo everything you just said. Just very, very glad to have this character.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. I guess, if you were to be attacked by King Ghidorah, where would you have it happen? Like, with you present? Like, where at?
Let me think. Somewhere cool, you know. It'd probably like it'd be cool to like be on Mount Fuji, like during like the fight where whenever Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra fought Ghidorah, like at Mount Fuji. I think I'd like to be there. If I had to be somewhere where King Ghidorah is, it'd be there.
Oh, that'd be badass, man.
Yeah, my final moments witnessing Godzilla throwing a boulder at King Ghidorah like that.
And the boulder hits you? Oh, be a great Instagram post. Oh, man. And I guess for me, I would probably say in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, when he's attacking Fukuoka, you know, the city of all the cool, like, little bridges over the waterways and all that. There's a scene where he's, like, stomping on a whole, like, building complex, and it looks like the apartments I live at right now. So, I want to be right there. You know, maybe I'm making a video like this, or I'm writing, or I'm doing something, you know, maybe I'm eating, you know, watching my YouTube, because I can't eat without YouTube. And then I just hear, like, the and I'm like, and just Ghidorah lands on me, like, just destroys everything, except my, the Criterion collection will still be standing, probably, with not me, though. I would be crumbled, but that's my pick. Oh, man. Oh, man. Well, I'm gonna end the recording, but we can still talk. So I'm gonna do the sign off.
can I do some shameless plugging real quick?
Yeah, by all means.
Cool. So yeah, me and Ike are. I host a podcast that Ike is often on. I co-host it with my friend Andrew. G-Force, a kaiju podcast. We recently covered all of Godzilla Rulers of Earth, the fan favorite comic book series from like 10 years ago. And you know, we've hopefully very soon we'll have our Godzilla versus Space Godzilla episode out, which will wrap up season 4 of the podcast. So if you want to check us out, we're on wherever you can listen to podcasts. We'll be there. And as for social media, you can find us on Instagram and Blue Sky at GeForce Kaiju Pod. I just recently made our final tweet on Twitter because I hate Twitter and I just had to get away from it. So, I mean, you can follow us there if you want, but we won't be posting anything anymore. But so that's also GeForce Kaiju Pod. And we are on Facebook at facebook.com/GeForce Kaiju Pod. And you can email us at GeForceKaijuPod@gmail.com. And if you want to ask us where you can watch Zone Fighter with subtitles, we will tell you that, because you should absolutely do that. So yeah, that's G-Force.
Oh. Well, Nick, thank you so much for being here, brother. I gotta have you on more, and vice versa on the podcast. I'll try to be on more.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time, and I would absolutely love to talk about some more stuff on your channel with you.
Definitely.
If you ever have a Mothra video, I would love to be there because I love Mothra.
I think we should. I got some more wink wink for future uploads, Godzilla stuff coming out, and Ultraman as well, just all tokusatsu. For any viewers that were struggling and, you know, wanted to watch this whole thing, and they only know me from the Yakuza stuff I post on my channel, well, I'm sure you guys like to watch other media too, and that might be Godzilla and tokusatsu. So, you know, I try to do a lot of cool things on here at Tiger Drop Films.
Watch Super Sentai.
Yes, you heard the man. If you don't, he'll eat your pizza rolls.
Exactly. I will come into your kitchen at 3 a.m. I will heat up all your pizza rolls and eat them.
It'll be like the scene of Planet Eater. It's going to be your shadow taking them all out.
And I will also give some to your dog if you have one.
Hell yeah. Oh man. But you guys can find all the G-Force links on my channel page. I've linked them in my channel bio too. G-Force, a kaiju podcast for all the fun discussions and bromance. It's your go-to for all things Godzilla and more. So thank you again for being on, Nick. I love you, bro. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. And after recording, I'll let you know when some future uploads you could be on too.
All right.
Oh, man. Well, thank you for watching. I've been Tiger Drop Films, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.
Goodbye. Jack is joining me.
Hey, Jack. What's your top 3?
Oh, yeah. It's the best.
Am I recording? You can start yours. We'll see how this goes. Nick? Are you there? Nick? Nick, are you there? God, come in, please. Are you there? Nick? Why can't I have what I want? Are you there? Nick?
Hi.
Nick? You're there.
Yeah.
Did you... I'm sure you couldn't hear the last 40 seconds.
No.
Oh,
You're like completely froze.
I will keep that in the video. It was me going, Nick, please.